Coverage next hour. You can also find information on our website, onenewsnow.com. Another of the U.S. military's brand new fighter jets has crashed, this time in South Carolina. Fox's Evan Brown reports.
A Marine Corps F-35B fighter jet crashed about 5 miles away from the Marine Corps Air Station in Beaufort, South Carolina. The pilot is said to have ejected and is safe. The F-35 is the U.S. military's newest fighter jet, and while it was reported yesterday to have flown its actual first combat mission in Afghanistan, it's not the first incident with this series of aircraft. 2 years ago, an F-35 at Beaufort caught fire midair and was forced to land. Evan Brown, Fox News.
And a Facebook network breach affects up to 50 million users. Fox's Kristen Goodwin has that story.
Facebook says an attack on its computer network exposed personal data of nearly 50 million users. Reps for the social network believe the attackers exploited a feature in the platform's code, allowing them to take over user accounts. Facebook fixed the vulnerability and reported it to law enforcement. Over 90 million of its users were forced to log out of their accounts as a safety precaution. In a statement, the company says it is in the early stages of investigating. It has yet to determine whether these accounts were misused and does not know the identity or origin of the attackers. The breach stemmed from a change to Facebook's video uploading feature in July of last year.
That's all our time for this hour. Find more news at onenewsnow.com.
Abraham Hamilton III.
God put us in this world at this time to be salt and light. We don't fold because of the darkness that we're facing. This is not the first time in the world's history that it's gotten dark. God has called you and I to be his ambassadors, even in this dark moment.
Tune in to the Hamilton Corner, weekdays at 5 p.m. Central on Urban Family Talk. She's sharp, pointed, and insightful. This is Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
People have been willing to do anything to make any physical threat against my family, to send any violent email to my wife, to make any kind of allegation against me and against my friends, to blow me up and take me down.
I hate to say this, but this is worse than Robert Bork, and I didn't think it could get any worse than that. This is worse than Clarence Thomas. I didn't think it could get any worse than that. This is a national disgrace.
This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics. I cannot imagine what you and your family have gone through. But let me tell you, when it comes to this, you're looking for a fair process. You came to the wrong town at the wrong time, my friend.
I don't think this whole Year of the Woman thing, I wonder if they haven't bit off more than they can chew on that, because I think it could easily as well turn out to be the Year of the Man, who feel like the target is on their back.
And now, Stacy Washington.
The Year of the Woman, the Year of the Man, the year of your gender, the year of your, elbow, the year of your foot. How about if we just have a year where people don't act like maniacs? Is that okay? Yeah. Welcome to the program. Stacy Washington, host of Stacy on the Right here on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk. Fantastic to be with you. I just got to say, boy, as the worm turns, it has been non-stop, just switches and changes. And if you think it's going too quickly or that there's so much going on that, look, God is in control. Simmer down. Let's enhance our calm. Let's not look at the outer appearances. Let's understand what's going on. This is a battle over abortion. This is a battle over one party's ability to completely reshape this country using only the courts because they can't win at the ballot box. That's what this is about. So as long as we know that, as long as we're willing to admit that, then we have an amazing ability right now to rely on God, to pray about this issue, and to keep it moving because there's so much other news going on. Did you hear about the data breach? 50 million Facebook users having their accounts. I mean, total insecurity. That happened. Some hacker says he's going to take Mark Zuckerberg's account and delete it on Sunday. Some Taiwanese guy who's a white hat hacker. You heard about that? Maybe not. Because what people want you to think is that these allegations against Judge Brett Kavanaugh and the destruction of his family and children are the only story in town and that there's nothing else that matters. And let me tell you, it's important. I understand the stakes are high because we're talking about, as I said, abortion. But it doesn't all end there. The end of the battle isn't, oh, what if they eliminate abortion? What if Roe v. Wade is overturned? It gets remanded back to the states. It's still a battle. Nothing is over. Nothing has even really begun just yet because we're still funding them, almost $2 billion a year. So, yes, this is important, and we're going to talk about it today. We also have Erielle Davidson. She's an economic research assistant at the Hoover Institution, also a contributor to the Federalist and Town Hall. And we're going to talk with her about news of the day, Kavanaugh, a host of issues. We're going to take your calls. In fact, we'll take those. We will take your calls pretty much all over, talking about, let's see, 866-963-2037. I had my wrong interface up here on the screen. 866-963-2037. We'll take your calls all this hour. It's Friday. So, and I'm not changing my demeanor because of what I've just seen out of Flaky Jeff Flake and all of that. Nope. Still a child of the king. God is still in control. We're still running this thing. Yeah. Prayer saves the day every day. I am not deterred. These momentary setbacks, these tiny lapses in the battle. Yes, they can be very frustrating, but we have to have our eyes on the end goal. And the end goal is, first of all, obviously in the Kavanaugh story, it's getting Kavanaugh onto the Supreme Court. I think, let's just ponder this for a second before we get to Nancy Pelosi saying she was praying to somebody. I don't know who. So do you agree with me that there's perhaps a unintended consequence of how nasty things got this past 2 weeks for Brett Kavanaugh? And when I say that, here's what I mean. I mean that in some ways, Judge Kavanaugh was, although definitely a Republican, a kind of a moderate Republican. In fact, one of the reasons that I've heard in back channel and, open channel is that the reason he was chosen is because they thought he might be easier to get through for that swing vote seat, as the Democrats like to call it, because he was a little more moderate and because he'd been shown to be very, very strong on civil rights and protecting people who've been incarcerated and allowing people who've been incarcerated to appeal, et cetera, et cetera. And so they thought he'd be a more moderate choice. Don't you feel that after having his family completely eviscerated by this process or being wrongly accused by the Democrats, not based on his record, but based on scurrilous allegations against him, accusations that they're baseless, that in some ways they have moved him further to the right than he would have normally found himself? If you think about what he said yesterday when he talked about them lashing back at him, taking revenge on him, possibly because of the Clintons, possibly because of the Merrick Garland issue with the Supreme Court seat, because they want to hold the seat open and they don't want to give him a chance to go on the court because they want someone of their own choosing, because they are politically motivated and this side of the political spectrum is really interested in getting that win in November, more interested in that than having a fully functioning Supreme Court, which, if you think about the character of Judge Kavanaugh and what he shared during his 30 plus hours of testimony and his 300 and some odd opinions, he really is someone who hews strongly to the rules and, precedent. That was one of the things that they were so concerned about. Does he respect precedent? Well, he does. So someone who is that much of a rule follower and that much of, he's just been so careful to keep a clean and upright life, to have that destroyed, to have his daughters now have to be taunted at school and your dad's a rapist, that type of thing, to see his wife threatened, to see his entire carefully constructed world completely smashed down just because he said, yes, I'll go out for this Supreme Court nomination, I'd be honored to serve. It has an impact on you. Look at all of the people in Ohio who are running away from the Democrat party affiliation and switching their party affiliation. Look at all of the people across the country. No, they're not bots. Don't be fooled. People who are using the hashtag walk away and leaving an ideology that they feel is very, very totalitarian. I posit to you that in the privacy of your own thoughts, a moderate position is in danger if those who support that moderate position or individuals to one side of that position attack you. It tends to push you to the other side. And I don't mean regular attacks, because he was actually prepared for a normal confirmation process that would be contentious. He was prepared for what is the new norm, which is character assassination. But he was not prepared to be forever branded a rapist. And since that's what the Democrats have done, it was the ring of his statements yesterday that really made me think he's changed. And it might be largely beneficial to people like myself, where this isn't really about the party. Yeah, Stacey on the right. Yeah. But it's not about the party for me, as in I'm only with them because I love Republicans, or the color red is my favorite, or, elephants are just awesome. No. It's, what does God's word say about abortion? What does it say about marriage? What does it say about gender? What does it say about headship and submission, and the role of a man and a woman, and the role of children, the role of your workplace? What do you do in those situations per the word of God? When you look at it from that perspective, and then you see what's been done to Judge Kavanaugh, and you see that he's a man of faith, there may be some things that he was quite moderate on that he would be reassessing right now, because that moderate position is very close to those who undertook the task of completely destroying him. And so I say, it's a monster of their own making. When I look at Donald Trump in the White House, and sometimes he's, swinging a bat, and sometimes he's swinging a sledgehammer. And we all know the difference between a bat and a sledgehammer it's a major difference. Sometimes he's like a soft breeze. That's very rare. Other times he's like a tornado. But who got him there? Sure, the electorate got him there. But who brought Donald Trump to the forefront? Who gave him $22 million worth of free airtime? Well, it was the left. And so, I truly believe that Judge Kavanaugh will make it onto the Supreme Court. I'm no crystal ball, purveyor. I don't believe in that stuff. I can't predict the future, but I believe he's going to be confirmed. If that happens, I also believe that he will be further to the right than he was 3 weeks ago as a jurist. I believe that his last cases that he adjudicated, and I still think he'll be according to the Constitution. I think he's going to be a constructionist. I think he's going to, he's going to believe in precedent. But I also believe that this process and the attacks by the Democrats have forever changed his perspective politically. And there's no way that does not happen to change the way he writes opinions and the way he adjudicates cases. We have audio, but I want to go to the phones. Liz in Kansas, thank you so much for calling the show today. Happy Friday.
Hello, happy Friday. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
I just wanted to comment and say how excited and encouraged that I am. I am a longtime conservative Republican, and I just love that Kavanaugh stuck strong, and just the way that he was asked the questions. And one of the last questions before they closed yesterday was, do you swear to God that you did not do this? And he says, I swear. To put God in the seat where he was supposed to be from the beginning, and to watch the faces of the Democrats fall, to know that that is where we are coming from. We are rising up as Christians in this nation, and I am encouraged to know that God is in control, and it is good. It is good.
I'm with you. Thank you. That's a fantastic sentiment for Friday. Liz, awesome call. Let's do one more. Dan in Arkansas, and we'll also take calls in each segment this hour. Friday, I'm so happy to get to talk to you. Dan in Arkansas, thank you so much for calling.
Oh, thank you for taking my call. So I just wanted to make a comment. It's something that has been very puzzling to me for some time, and that is the irony behind if a pregnant woman in Arkansas is in an automobile accident and loses her child, it is considered manslaughter. Mm-hmm. However, abortion is totally legal and is not manslaughter. And the irony behind that I find it very baffling. So I'll hang up and listen to what you have to say.
Thank you so much, Dan. This point has been made excellently, as it was by Dan just now, and so many others have made it, which is that there's this huge double standard. If a man, God forbid, murders his wife and she's pregnant, he's brought up on murder charges for 2 people. But if a woman decides to go to a Planned Parenthood or some other clinic and have an abortion, that's just constitutionally protected, reproductive rights, or as the Democrats are now calling it, health care. It's not right. It's not the way we should believe. It's not something that we're, I'm ashamed of it. I think a lot of Americans are ashamed of that. And, we got to pray for wisdom. We have to pray for people to be able to see that very clearly. Like, it took Dan, less than 60 seconds, maybe 45 seconds to lay that out. But there are people who are deceived, who truly and honestly believe that abortion is health care or abortion is just some right. And they're deceived. And so we got to do what we can to bring the truth. And part of that is praying. And I'm just asking everybody, just a reminder, it's Friday. We have, you have maybe late lunch today. I'm not sure if you've had lunch, and then you have dinner time. When you pray over your meal, please pray for this process that tomorrow the Senate will no more investigations, that there will be a full vote on Kavanaugh's seating on the Supreme Court, and pray for him and his family. My heart broke yesterday listening to him talk about the things in his life that have changed forever for him. And I pray for reconciliation and healing and all of that for their family. And I ask you to join me in doing that. Thank you so much for those who said, that you're doing that. We're going to continue to take calls, so hang with me. And we'll have our guest, Erielle Davidson, also next segment. Stay right there. American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
What if I told you that you could clean your family's laundry and help reach the next generation at the same time? That opportunity is here through a company called Redeem Clean. Every time you use Redeem Clean products, you help support the ministry of the American Family Association. In addition to your regular AFA giving, Redeem Clean laundry detergent allows you to increase your support of AFA just by continuing to wash your family's clothes. Redeem Clean products work as well as or better than other products on the market. They're environmentally safe, biodegradable, and they're made in the USA. And they were developed exclusively for the support of the American Family Association. For clean laundry and support of a cleaner society, it's Redeem Clean. Learn more, find options, and order Redeem Clean products at afastore.net. That's afastore.net.
Hi, I'm Crawford Loritz with a Legacy Moment. I suppose we've all had our encounters with vindictive, manipulative people, and it's not pleasant. These are people who, for whatever reason, shape the truth, bend situations, and devise schemes to make sure they come out on top or get their own way at the expense of others. In fact, not long ago, I warned a young man who unfortunately got in the crosshairs of one of these manipulators. Be careful. Don't meet with this individual by yourself. Chances are what you say in that meeting is not the same thing he'll say when you walk out of the meeting. We need to heed the old warning. Be careful whom you trust. But on the other hand, these dishonest manipulators will be held accountable. Psalm 7 verses 14 through 16 have a word concerning those folks who are schemers and manipulators. Behold, he travails with wickedness, and he conceives mischief and brings forth falsehood. He has dug a pit and hollowed it out, and has fallen into the hole which he made. His mischief will return upon his own head, and his violence will descend upon his pate. Allow me to make 2 observations. Number 1, manipulation and evil schemers will return to the person. No one ever gets away with evil, ever. Number 2, the price for using and hurting others is too high. If you want to get even with somebody, you might want to take pause. You may want to ask yourself, is getting back at him or her really worth that much? Here's what I want you to remember today. You can never justify manipulation and evil. You are called to do what is right, not what is convenient or personally beneficial. Remember, we will definitely reap what we sow.
More information about the ministry of Crawford Loritz can be found online at livingalegacy.org.
Welcome back to Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Hey there, welcome back to the program here on American Family Radio. AFR.net is the website. You can also find American Family Radio on Facebook. I just shared a good story from there from American Family Radio on my Facebook page. You can go there and click through to the page and like it as well. So we'd love for you to do that. And I'd also like to take one quick call before we go to Erielle Davidson. It's Rebecca in Louisiana. Thank you so much for calling the show today. Hey, Rebecca. Welcome to the program.
Hey, Stacy.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well.
You know, I've just been so angry with this whole Kavanaugh thing and just how ridiculously idiotic it is. And God just put this on my heart because sometimes you've just got to laugh. And it made me think of, you know, Jeff Flake and the other lady who decided there needs to be an FBI investigation.
Yeah.
It made me think of an Old Testament story. And this reminded me of the she-bears coming out of the woods and devouring the children who mocked the man of God. And not that vengeance is the Lord. Please hear me on that. But you just might want to tell them not to go, you know, in the woods or anything, because God will take care of his problem one way or the other.
I love it when people bring the biblical stories to bear on today's news. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for sharing that, and happy Friday to you. Okay, it's my pleasure to go to Erielle Davidson, Economic Research Assistant at the Hoover Institution, and we'll take more calls in the next segment, but right now we got to get to Erielle. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Stacey. Always a pleasure to come on your show.
I'm dying to hear what you have to say because you're always so astute. Your analysis is so dead on. What is this circus we're watching right here? What is going on? Jeff Flake is now in charge of the whole Senate. What's going on?
No, I mean, you know, it's been interesting watching the hearings take place. I think, you know, a lot of people saw, depending upon, I think Ted Cruz captured this really nicely today, depending upon what side of the political spectrum you're on, you watched a very different hearing yesterday. And I think someone, you know, made a good point. One of my political colleagues, she said, you know, it's possible Dr. Ford is telling the truth in terms of what she remembers, and it's possible that it wasn't Brett Kavanaugh. And I do believe that Brett Kavanaugh is innocent, and I do believe that something terrible happened to Dr. Ford, but I don't think it was Judge Kavanaugh. And so in my mind, you know, I feel a lot of sympathy for Dr. Ford. I think she had a very, she presented a very credible testimony, but what it comes down to is we don't have any evidence beyond her testimony to corroborate the events, and I'm not ready to destroy a man's career over something that can't be corroborated, and the witnesses that she said were there have no recollection of the event or the party.
Yeah, so you're so much nicer than I am. It's
I know.
You're just nicer than me, and I know it, and I want to be nice, but I just can't. I think it's been squeezed out of me over the decades. So, I mean, I do my best.
No, it's a circus.
It is.
It's a circus. And I think Jeff Flake, Jeff Flake is coming from a good place, actually, and I am not Jeff Flake's biggest fan. I think you and I have talked about this in the past. My concern is that if he asks for another week for an FBI investigation, the Democrats are going to put forth more garbage allegations like the gang rape one that came up in the past, and then try to use that to protract the investigation, to protract this hearing and Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation. And what it will do is it will decrease the threshold in the future for any type of confirmation hearing. And so what we'll start to see is random allegations will stop people from coming into positions of power in the future. And it will actually, as Lindsey Graham said, it will prevent good people from coming into government. They're not going to want to do it anymore.
Well,
the stakes are too high for character assassination.
They are. And I got to echo what you just said. I'll even take it a step further. I really think with the Ford allegations kind of falling apart due to a lack of evidence, and the points that were made by Lindsey Graham, who used to be a prosecutor himself, about how you have to have a certain amount of evidence in order to trigger an investigation. There's two things. First of all, the next allegations will be much more heinous than the horrible, rape trains and all of that stuff that they mentioned. I believe they'll come out with children that he's previously coached. It's just demonic what they're up to, and I don't put anything past them. And I believe just like they were advertising for Christine Ford and Ramirez to come forward, they're advertising for some child to come forward. And how do you refute those allegations? How do you have a child come before the Senate Judiciary Committee and testify? And those allegations would have to be investigated by the police, which would completely derail the process. There's another thing.
No, I agree.
Well,
I agree. I think it puts the process at risk.
It does. And if you have to investigate one FBI investigation, so in other words, if one allegation prompts a FBI investigation, then what's to say that they won't also demand that Ramirez and the Avenatti accusers are also not investigated by the FBI, taking the process from 1 5-day investigation to 3 5-day investigations, which is 15 days, 15 business days. And that's if they get everything done on time, if witnesses cooperate and are willing to be interviewed. And we just saw how long it took to get Christine Blasey Ford, who flies all over the world all the time. It was the most difficult thing in the world to get her to come to Washington, D.C. on Thursday. I mean, it was literally the worst thing in the world for her. What do you see happening with, because I think a lot of people are really frustrated about the issue itself of having Republicans, people who claim to be Republicans like Jeff Flake and Murkowski and Collins, but when it comes to time for the rubber to meet the road, when we need them, they're never there. What do you think happens there? Because they come from kind of liberal strongholds.
Right. It's actually funny you're asking me about this, because I was just chatting about this today with a few Federalist people. Isn't it great that the Democrats rarely have rogue senators, but we just need to have them in the multiples? When they go to vote, they know pretty much, with the exception of Manchin and West Virginia, that everyone's going to vote the way they're supposed to, or everyone's going to vote the way they expect them to. With Murkowski and Collins and Flake and a few others, sometimes even Corker, we're in a situation where we have to wonder and pound our heads against the wall to guess how they're going to vote. The GOP is unique like that. They're less consolidated, I think, than the Democrats. Sometimes that's good for ideological diversity, but sometimes it really hurts us. And when it comes to voting, it most certainly hurts us because they're unreliable. We have a bunch of senators who are extremely unreliable when it comes to party line voting. So I'm not sure what happens next. I did hear murmurs that that Manchin and Collins, Murkowski were all going to sort of vote the same way as a block, and depending upon which way they swing, I can't predict now. If you had asked me early this morning if I thought when the vote would come that Kavanaugh would be confirmed, I would have said 100%. My concern about delaying this further, as Flake has suggested, is that it removes us and creates distance from the Kavanaugh testimony. Right now, the GOP is riding on some really good momentum from Brett Kavanaugh's appearance. I think he spoke with clarity. I think he spoke with conviction. I think he spoke with what a lot of people are calling rightful indignation. Mm-hmm. The GOP is really riding on that momentum right now, and I think it will hurt them to have this protracted longer because it will create distance from that, and it'll be less fresh in people's minds. Right now, it's very powerful, and I am worried about that, and I'm particularly worried about that when it comes to those who really need the convincing, a.k.a. our rogue GOP senators.
Erielle, you make some good points there. Okay, so I'm with you on Kavanaugh's appearance being very, very strong. I think it was also buttressed by the surprise righteous indignation that we saw. It was straight volcanic fire from Lindsey Graham and others, Mike Lee and Senator Ted Cruz. They were also very strong yesterday. But I think there was something else. For people who were watching online or went back and watched later, it was the faces of the Democrats as Senator Graham was castigating them. And then later they tried to clean it up. Cory Booker asked Judge Kavanaugh, do you think it's politically motivated? In other words, do you agree with the insult that was levied at us? As a way to kind of clean themselves off. And it didn't really work. I feel like the stench of the accusations that were hurled at them by Lindsey Graham stuck to them. And the only way to get rid of it is to put some distance between the actual accusations themselves. Because you're right. Right now, Republicans are very strong in their unity surrounding the fact that Kavanaugh's innocent. They can dim that over time. I guess I'm just wondering, why would Murkowski, at this stage where Republicans are actually righteously indignant as well, why would she and Collins take this chance? Because they do still need Republican votes.
I think that, ultimately they would end up confirming Kavanaugh. They're just such wild cards. Another thing that's sort of helpful, as that crossed my mind as you were talking, is that, Murkowski and Collins, their biggest issues haven't really been with individuals within the GOP. They're really just, they take issue with Trump. And I think one of the things that actually has been helpful is that Trump has really stayed out of this. He's been busy with the UN, and so I think that's actually been kind of helpful because it's really allowed people to focus on Kavanaugh and, just focus on the fact that we are confirming this particular justice, who is an independent person. It's not just Trump's nominee, but he is a nominee of the GOP. And I think that actually resonates with people like Collins and Murkowski who take issue with Trump. I think it's been kind of a good thing that Trump has sort of taken a little bit of a backseat role here. He's been attending other fairs abroad. And I think that's been, somewhat helpful, especially for getting people, again, who are on the fence, who try to use their vote to weaponize it against President Trump because they have their own issues. And, never Trump didn't end for them on the election day. So, that's a separate issue. But I do think that, it's been somewhat helpful that Trump has been busy with the UN right now in terms of dealing with those senators.
Okay, you make a good point there. I'm actually, as you were talking, I was thinking, yeah, he even said Thursday he wasn't going to meet with Rosenstein because he didn't want to have the news draw away from the hearing. He said yesterday, actually he said this morning, I saw on the press list, they had, they asked him, what do you think about the fact that a couple of senators are asking for a delay? And he said, I've just heard that just as you have. I was just in a meeting with whatever diplomat he's with today. He said, so I'm not really up on it. I don't have anything to say. As a strategy, it's brilliant because it keeps him from being the lightning rod that pushes people to one side or the other. I also am wondering, how much does the fact that a lot of these senators, at least some of them, are in these toss-up states, so they're really in the race for their lives. They voting against Kavanaugh could seal their fate as not going back in January. How much of a role does that play?
I mean, with people like Manchin, I think it plays a huge role. In West Virginia, the margin of West Virginians that are in favor of confirming Kavanaugh is like a 20-point margin, which is huge. So I think that for senators who are in fairly red states that happen to be Democrats, what we might call blue dog Democrats, but they're not even, I'm not even sure if that's really the appropriate term any longer. They're feeling the heat. I'd be curious. I was, wondering what the numbers look like in Alabama for Doug Jones. There are states where you have, Democratic senators who are going to be facing some heat. Claire McCaskill in Missouri, she's going to be up for re-election in the midterms of 2018. I'm really curious how people in Missouri might feel about this. I haven't seen the numbers yet, but I have a feeling, given that I believe Missouri went to Trump
by 18.8 points.
It
was a rout.
No, so it will be interesting to see how this impacts her reelection. I mean, she's going to have big problems, and I have a feeling, I haven't heard anything about how she's voting, which tells me she's probably voting
she's
against
already said she's voting
Kavanaugh.
against him. So she said she was voting against him, but not because of the allegations. She said that his rulings on presidential power, or statements on presidential power, gave her pause, and so she was voting against him. It's a calculated risk because there's such a split in Missouri. It's a red state for sure. Outstate is just as red as it can get, but the population centers are very blue. The suburban areas are kind of purple, and so she's taken a gamble that the areas where her constituents lie are numerous enough. There are enough of them that she can kowtow to them and still maintain her seat. But she's been very moderate on everything else. She sounds almost like a rhino Republican in some of these ads she's been running. And it's fine, you do what you got to do to win. But this should be an issue. Like this vote should be an issue that sticks for her. And I see her trying to she's running away from it, in my opinion.
I hope Hawley brings it up. I hope he does. I hope he maximizes it because he really should. I mean, this is an opportunity for him to show that he might do a better job at demonstrating the will of the Missouri people better than Claire could. But that's, you know, if I were involved in Holly's campaign, I would really tell him to highlight this.
And then you also have Donnelly and Heitkamp.
Yes. And I think Donnelly is also in the conglomerate of Manchin and Collins and Murkowski, who said they were all going to vote as a block. I believe it was those four together.
They're doing that because they're terrified. I don't know if you saw, it was traveling around Facebook, this picture of Dianne Feinstein with her arm up against the wall, like an aggressive boyfriend. And you've got Lisa Murkowski. Did you see that? And Lisa Murkowski, who they look like they're the same height technically, but because Feinstein's arm is stretched up over the doorway and she's trapped, it looks like one of them is towering over the other, and one is explaining and the other one is just standing there looking very stern. I mean, I'm wondering, is that the situation? Because I've been very hard on Murkowski, but maybe she's just afraid, you know, to vote like a Republican.
Well, if they're voting, I mean, it's possible. You're right. If they're voting as a bloc, they're trying to avoid individual blame or individual responsibility associated with their vote, which is actually sort of an interesting tactic. You know, if you think about why people engage in mob-like behavior, it's to remove individual responsibility because they don't all want to be, you know, individually associated with a decision or an event. So it's possible that these four are sticking together to sort of remove individual blame. Totally possible. And I also think they could just be scared. I mean, the left has done a great job of harassing people over this vote. If you notice that, and I don't know if you noticed this today in the hearings, but, you know, in the individual statements from Democratic and Republican senators, the Democrats just continue to sort of talk about things, you know, rape culture and all the things that are very, very important, but I don't think were directly represented in this case. And then you sort of had the Republican senators going on about how important it was to find common ground. And I think that message should be something that...
We're running out of time, Erielle, but it's fantastic to talk to you. We'll be back with more right after this.
St. John 1:1 says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Remember in the Word when Jesus was responding to Satan's antics? When Satan was trying to tempt Jesus with food, Jesus responded with himself. He responded with the Word. There are no new tricks in Satan's book. At the end of the day, his job is to create fear and doubt, and steal, kill, and destroy. So if Jesus, who is fully God, responded to Satan with the Word, why do we think that we can get along without the Word? The Bible says, "Study to show thyself approved." Equip yourself with the Word daily and watch your response to Satan's foolishness change. One of my coworkers, Pastor Joseph Parker, teaches that it's good to read at least 3 chapters a day. Sounds good to me. Today is a good day to start. With a heart for the urban family, I'm today's urban woman, Tony Johnson. Connect with us at urbanfamilytalk.com.
Y'all have encouraged us to go out, stand for the Word of God, stand politically.
It's truly a blessing to hear how God is using Urban Family Talk.
Just want to say I love everything that Urban Family does.
Will you take a moment to share your story? Call 877-327-5647. That's 877-327-5647. Thanks.
My name's Brandon. I never imagined dealing drugs would end up costing my family so much. But when Teen Challenge opened the doors for me, I got the second chance I so desperately needed. Now I'm drug-free, and I'm making up for lost time.
If you know an adult or teenager who's struggling with a chemical addiction, Teen Challenge can help. Call us today at 417-581-2181 or reach us online at teenchallengeusa.com. This is Urban Family Talk.
This is Fox on Justice. There were just a few parishioners gathered at Open Gate Ministries Church in East Granby, Connecticut. It was a Wednesday and weekly prayer meetings are on Fridays. But co-pastors Michael and Colette Trzynski were there, and they were all joined by a man they didn't know. Colette described him as childlike and trusting. He opened up about his life and what he'd gone through, and he confessed to a murder, the stabbing death of Melissa Milan 4 years ago on a nearby jogging trail. Michael Trzynski and 2 others at the church brought the man to the Simsbury Police Department.
27-year-old William Leverett walked into the Simsbury Police Department and wanted to talk with police in regards to the murder that occurred in 2014. Over the course of several days, investigators had multiple conversations with Leverett. This resulted in an arrest warrant for William Leverett.
Police Lieutenant Tom Sheehan. It had been a cold case, no major leads or clues, until Leverett decided to go into that church and confess. With Fox on Justice, Hank Weinblum, Fox News.
You can download episodes of Stacy on the Right from the podcast page on AFR.net or UrbanFamilyTalk.com. Now, back to the show on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being here today. Wow. That was a great interview. And also, wow, we still have great callers in the queue. Okay, perfect. So let's, if you'd like to call in, last segment of this hour, 866-963-2037, 866-963-2037. Happy Friday to you. Welcome to American Family Radio. Stacy on the Right. All right, let's go to John in Ohio. Hey, John, thanks so much for holding on, and happy Friday to you. Hey, John. I'm not sure if we still have him. Okay. Well, if you'd like to call back, 866-963-2037. Let's actually listen to some audio of the committee vote report. And this is some important stuff because today is the day that they were supposed to vote Kavanaugh's nomination out of the Judiciary Committee. It's largely a procedural vote, but it's something that they traditionally have had happen before the full Senate will vote on a nominee. Let's listen to that.
Mr. Chairman, the votes are 11 days, 10 days.
The nominee will be reported to the floor.
Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
So that is then right before Flake starts making all of his, I guess, hey, I need you to do this, and hey, I need you to do that. I am kind of exhausted by the fact that, and Erielle Davidson just discussed this, the Democrats always have pretty solid knowledge. They even have people who are independents that caucus with them. And it's because they're kind of single-minded in their desire to radically change what America is. And then Republicans are all into individual, I'm an individual, I have my own thoughts, I have my own feelings, which means that really they're kind of Democrats. Like Jeff Flake is a Democrat, really. He doesn't believe in Republican Party ideals. And that's why he's not running again, because he can't get elected on his little wishy-washy, middle-of-the-road, kind of John McCain-ish Republicanism. And that is a problem for him. So that's why he's not running again. And on his way out, he's basically slashing and burning all the way to, January when he's done. And it's a shame. It's an utter shame. But there it is. So now I'm going to go to Nancy Pelosi praying for divine intervention, and then we'll take some more calls. She says, I'm praying for divine intervention to stop Judge Kavanaugh.
My apologies if somebody asked this already. Sorry, I got here a little bit late. Your Judiciary Chairman in waiting, Jerry Nadler, was among the House members at the Kavanaugh Judiciary meeting this morning. What would you recommend Chairman Nadler do in January on this issue?
Well, I'm hoping that Judge Kavanaugh will not be a justice of the Supreme Court. Let's just take it one day at a time. I did not know he was over there. I don't even know who was over there. I know a large number planned to go. But we were fighting for sanity in our tax code on the floor of the House over here because once again, the Republicans are doing a real disservice to the future of our country and what they're doing, depriving us of opportunities to invest in the education of our children, the security of our seniors, the needs of our veterans. It's really appalling to give tax breaks to the wealthiest people in our country.
Should Nadler do hearings next year if he has that power?
Well, let's see. I'm ever hopeful of an intervention. Prayerful of a divine intervention.
From who? Who would she be praying to? Nancy Pelosi, pro-abortionist extraordinaire. She came take communion in Washington, D.C. She has to take communion in her home diocese because it's more liberal. I mean, no offense. I won't say I'm sorry because that's not true, but no offense. Let's go to Steve in Illinois. Steve, thank you so much for calling the show, and happy Friday. welcome to the show. We're having some audio problems with this, I think. I could not hear what he was saying, but I heard a little something. Call lines are still open at 866-963-2037. So one of the best moments of yesterday, which occurred while we were live here on the air, was Lindsey Graham going crazy. I mean, he just, and I don't mean going crazy in a bad way. Sometimes there's going crazy in a bad way, and sometimes there's going crazy in a way that is like momentous. And for me, it was the reset button with Lindsey Graham. I cannot be that person who doesn't acknowledge the fact that his statement was pivotal yesterday. Here's part of it. It's number 3.
Did you know that her and her staff had this allegations for over 20 days?
I did not know that at the time.
If you wanted an FBI investigation, you could have come to us. What you want to do is destroy this guy's life, hold this seat open, and hope you win in 2020. You've said that, not me. You've got nothing to apologize for. When you see Sotomayor and Kagan, tell them that Lindsey said hello, because I voted for them. I would never do to them what you've done to this guy. This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics. And if you really wanted to know the truth, you sure wouldn't have done what you've done to this guy. Are you a gang rapist?
No.
I cannot imagine what you and your family have gone through. Boy, y'all want power, but I hope you never get it. I hope the American people can see through this sham, that you knew about it and you held it. You had no intention of protecting Dr. Ford. None. She's as much of a victim as you are. I hate to say it because these have been my friends. But let me tell you, when it comes to this, you're looking for a fair process, you came to the wrong town at the wrong time, my friend.
You can hear the passion in his voice. You can hear how upset he is. And he's absolutely right. This is about controlling the court for the next 10, 15 years. And how do you know? Because Democrats are already saying that if Kavanaugh is seated, the entire court will be delegitimized. Like it wasn't delegitimized just a tad when Kagan and Sotomayor took their robes. Come on. Those two Marxists, they don't even believe in the same America we all believe in. They believe in it for themselves, but not for you and not for me. Not for us peons. People who live in regular existences and don't have U.S. Marshals protecting us. People who have to actually know how to shoot a gun ourselves and actually learn what the laws are in our state and actually plan on defending ourselves. People who have to actually take threats seriously and forward them to investigators ourselves. People who actually are responsible for making sure bills get paid because we don't make the kind of money that they make. We don't have the kind of power that they have. We don't have access to those insider trading opportunities. And so we as a people have to just live like regular Americans. And we're just so blessed to do so, just so excited about being Americans, just so excited that we can have our own guns and have our own Bibles and have church and have Bible study and, you know, just live and la-di-da on a Friday and do whatever we want. But Sonia and Elena, they live in that rarefied space where they can rain down prognostications from on high on the rest of us little flyover peons and let us worry about the damages. Let us worry about the ramifications as they ripple out, all of the illegal immigration and the shipping off of American jobs. We get to care about that. They get to care about, well, I have a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court. Thank you very much. I'm going to head over to some Federalist Society events, which, you know, God bless them. I'm glad they go. I'm glad those liberals take themselves over to the Federalist Society. They need to learn a thing or two. But those people aren't on the Supreme Court because they want to uphold the Constitution. Those leftists are on the Supreme Court because they want to radically change America for you, not for them, for you. Understand that. You should be able to smell and hear the deception when it starts coming at you, and you should immediately have your hand up. No, thank you. I will take my information without a side of deception or a veneer of deception. Keep your deception frosting. I'm ready for the truth. And that's what you're not going to get from Elena Kagan and Sotomayor. And I'm glad Lindsey Graham has now seen the light after having voted for these kinds of people. He should never have cast a vote for them. Why is there all of this collegiality from the Republican side and the Democrats are out for blood? They're sharpening their knives, and the Republicans have their shrimp forks out, and they're looking for the next hors d'oeuvre. The Republicans are zipping up their third sweater vest or their third, waistcoat, and the Democrats are all down there, trying to pour metal into those little hollow balls so they can make weapons. They're literally finding ways to destroy anyone on the right, and the Republicans are dancing square dance jigs. It's time for them to wake up and smell the rebellion. It's been brewing on the left for 30 years. The silent rage on the right needs to be expressed through our elected representation. And that's all the Republicans. And so Lindsey Graham had a moment yesterday, but how about it not be a moment? How about a bunch of those senators on the Republican side pick up that fire, put it in their own belly, and start acting like they know who they work for. They work for their constituents who are sitting at home, going down their list, checking out their checkbooks, going through their bills, making a life in this country. Their kids are overseas serving. Their husbands have served and they've made it back in whatever condition they made it back, leaving parts of themselves abroad on behalf of the Constitution of this country. And these Republicans are up in this house, paid for by us, living large, and they can't seem to find the right from the wrong with a bright flashlight in their face. And so we watched yesterday as Lindsey Graham finally came to his senses, but is it too late? Was his rant enough? I don't know. Let's go to Steve in Illinois. Thank you so much for calling today. Happy Friday. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for calling the show.
Howdy.
What's your comment?
What's that?
What's your comment? Did you call in to share a comment?
Oh, well, it's hard to hear you, kind of faint, but all this started during Obama's administration when they started changing how history it is, removal of all the Confederate statutes and everything. And then now it's gotten to the point where it's not about right and wrong. It's not about having evidence. It's about the court of public opinion. And I watched the hearing all day yesterday. I mean, all day from start to finish. And there was no credible evidence right there. And all the Democrats were doing was pushing for an FBI investigation. And they know that the FBI has no authority granted to them to even start an investigation on this deal, but yet it's all anti-Trump. That's all it is. This is all political. It's anti-Trump. And if something don't happen real quick, this stuff's not going to end.
Nope, it sure won't. And thank you so much for calling, Steve. I got to say, dead on. It started with Obama, but it was kind of before that as well. Because remember Justice Bork or Judge Bork, how he was treated. Remember Judge Clarence Thomas, how he was treated. Anytime there's going to be a pivotal change on the court or someone will be elevated that doesn't fit the mantra of Republicans, then the Democrats go ham and they deliver these kind of reckless, just devilish, demonic attacks on these people when they're just going for something. It is the highest judgeship in the land. But, anyway, Jim in Texas, thank you so much for calling the show. Happy Friday to you.
Hey, happy Friday back to you.
Thanks.
Hey, I'm so sick and tired of the Republicans in office just being a bunch of political patsies. They're so weak and spineless, it makes me sick. And I keep praying that they get displaced by true conservatives. And the Democrats, like you're saying, keep using the same freaking methodology from their playbook, bring out false allegations that are unfounded, unprovable, and bring people like Judge Roy Moore in Alabama down and others. It's just sickening to watch.
It is. It's sickening to watch. And every time we try to send, kind of like a train wrecker, and I mean that in the best possible way, like Donald Trump, someone comes up, well, we need someone who's established. We need someone who's known statewide. No, we need more regular Joes like Donald Trump. And I know he's a billionaire, but I mean regular Joes in that his demeanor is not that of a billionaire. His demeanor is that of somebody who's come up through the trenches and worked hard. And he really doesn't have a whole lot of room for the kind of shenanigans that we're seeing from rhinos like Jeff Flake. And so, you're right. You're right, Jim. We have time for one more quick call. Ann in Texas, thank you so much for calling the show today. You have a quick, we just have a quick minute and something left.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Just checking.
Sure. What's your comment?
My comment is this. I believe Dr. Ford 100%. And the reason why is this. She didn't ask to be put in this position. Nobody is considering the fact that he could possibly not be telling the truth. Should I think things could have been handled a little bit differently? Yes. However, at the end of the day, she has nothing to gain from this information.
Okay, let me stop you there. She works for the manufacturer of RU-486, which is the abortion pill in America. She works for the abortion pill manufacturer, Ann. She has everything to gain from stopping Kavanaugh from going onto the Supreme Court because he might overturn Roe v. Wade and impact their sales. They're a multi-billion-dollar company in this country. She has everything to gain. I'm sorry that you're deceived into thinking she doesn't, but Dr. Blasey Ford is a pro-abortion, hardcore, anatomical hat-wearing leftist, and the Democrats are using her. All right, that's the end of this part of the program. If you're leaving us, God bless you. If you're with us, then stay with us. It's onenewsnow.com. Up next, the news from them. Stay there.
Urban Family Talk.
Always stay up to date with the latest in the culture war from the news team of One News Now. Use the One News Now mobile app. It neatly categorizes news and articles from the One News Now website in an easy-to-find format. You can read the stories, watch videos, and conveniently share any news story. It's now available for download from your phone's app store.
Truth, wisdom, empowerment. Urban Family Talk, a ministry of the American Family Association.
For American Family News on the Hour, I'm Chris Woodward. In a surprise twist, Arizona Senator Jeff Flake has voted to advance the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the U.S. Supreme Court on the condition that the full Senate vote would be delayed 1 week. Flake announced Friday morning that he would vote yes on Kavanaugh. He then had a meeting with Democrats on the Judiciary Committee, who apparently persuaded him to ask for more time. This is Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina.
If we ask the FBI to look at what's in front of us no later than a week, no longer than a week, and they would say that would be a better process, that would be progress, and Jeff's trying his best to bring the country together and vote the best way he knows how.
President Trump had this to say from the Oval Office.
I think it will work out very well for the country. I just want it to work out well for the country. If that happens, I'm happy.
Meanwhile, the Democrat attacks against Brett Kavanaugh in committee on Thursday may backfire on them come November. AFN Steve Jordahl reports.
Senator Lindsey Graham said Thursday's performance in committee by Democrats was the most despicable thing he has ever seen in his time in politics. It was indeed a slow-motion car wreck.
And what you're saying, if I understand it, is that the allegations by Dr. Ford, Ms. Ramirez, and Ms. Swetnick are wrong.
Yeah, that is emphatically what I'm saying. Emphatically. The Swetnick thing is a joke. That is a farce.
Would you like to say more about it?
No.
Presidential counselor Dr. Robert Jeffress says the left is hurting more than just Judge Kavanaugh.
Democrats are trying to destroy the most basic foundation, not only of Americans' legal system, but of God's sense of justice that dates back to the time of Moses, and that is the presumption of innocence.
He says treachery in Washington has reached appalling new heights.
Watching these hearings is a stark reminder of why we cannot allow the left to ever be in control of anything ever again. They care nothing about the rule of law. They care nothing about justice. all they care is about is getting their way.
And as America starts to see behind the curtain, Jeffers says conservatives in particular are paying attention.
What we saw in these hearings should be a strong motivation for everyone to vote in the midterms.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
More Kavanaugh coverage at onenewsnow.com. Facebook's Instagram is developing technology to flag illegal drug sellers. Fox's Kristen Goodwin explains.
Instagram cracking down on illegal drug sales. A critical Washington Post article based on findings from cyber intelligence startup Global Intellectual Property Enforcement Center found searching certain hashtags pulled up thousands of Instagram posts from folks bragging about using or selling drugs, claiming algorithms started marketing narcotics in feed. In a statement, Facebook reps call the results misleading, explaining Instagram blocks and filters hundreds of terms associated with drug sales. Instagram also developing automated systems which can detect words in a photo to flag drug sellers, which reps say is important because bad actors share their contact information in images to evade detection. Kristen Goodwin, Fox News.
It's a different kind of DUI in California. Here's Fox's Carly Shimkus.
We've heard of drinking and driving, but what about drinking and scooting? A 28-year-old in Los Angeles was charged with a misdemeanor for knocking a pedestrian over while riding a scooter under the influence. This is the first conviction involving a motorized scooter. The man was sentenced to 3 years probation in order to pay a fine and complete a 3-month DUI program. Motorized scooters have become a controversial mode of transportation in California, with some people calling them dangerous and annoying.
And JetBlue is following the lead of larger rivals by offering a stripped-down ticket with fewer options than regular economy fares. The airline says customers who take the cheapest fare might have to accept limits on when they board, their seat, and whether they can change or cancel a reservation. The new fare class is expected to take effect sometime next year.
Hey, have you called in to share your testimony about how God has been a blessing in your life? If not, what are you waiting for? Share-a-thon is almost here. Stop whatever it is that you're doing and call 877-327-5647. God is too good for us to just sit there and not tell others about his goodness and his mercy. Simply call 877-327-5647. We can't wait to hear from you.
She's sharp, pointed, and insightful. This is Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
People have been willing to do anything to make any physical threat against my family, to send any violent email to my wife, to make any kind of allegation against me and against my friends, to blow me up and take me down.
I hate to say this, but this is worse than Robert Bork, and I didn't think it could get any worse than that. This is worse than Clarence Thomas. I didn't think it could get any worse than that. This is a national disgrace.
This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics. I cannot imagine what you and your family have gone through. But let me tell you, when it comes to this, you're looking for a fair process? You came to the wrong town at the wrong time, my friend.
I don't think this whole Year of the Woman thing, I wonder if they haven't bit off more than they can chew on that, because I think it could easily as well turn out to be the Year of the Man, who feel like the target is on their back.
And now, Stacy Washington.
Welcome to the program, StacyOnTheRight.com, at StacyOnTheRight on Twitter and Instagram. Hit those sites up and hit the subscribe button or the like button or the follow button. You are welcome. And it's Friday. Happy Friday to you. We're taking calls all this hour. We have 866-963-2037 as the call lines. We're happy to talk to you, whether you're for or against Kavanaugh, whatever the case might be. Just bring your facts. I'm not ready for any emotions up in this piece. We also have some audio that we're going to get to. And then I wanted to cover some of these stories because even though we have this huge spectacle going on with the Supreme Court nomination, there are other news stories of importance, like George Soros funding Fusion GPS. That's right. The circle is complete. While Democrats scream about Citizens United and dark money, they get their money from George Soros, the destroyer of worlds. Yeah. So that happens. And then there's the federal spending spree, including millions on cars, scooters, fidget spinners. The run down to the end of the government fiscal year means people just go out and buy whatever they can get their hands on because they don't want their budget number to be smaller this year than it was last year, even though they don't need the money. And this contributes bigly, as Donald Trump would say, to our actual deficit. They're spending money on these toys and trinkets, money that we're borrowing, not money that we have in cash. No family would ever operate this way. No one would ever allow this to happen in a private company, but our government has been doing it for decades, and that's why we owe, is it 20-some-odd trillion dollars to China, Taiwan, you name it, just any old country that'll give us some money. It's just ridiculous. So let's go to the phones really quickly. We have Ann back with us. She called last hour. Ann, thank you so much for calling back. What's your comment?
I just want to understand why I was not able to get my opinion out before you took me off the call.
Well, there were 50 seconds left, and we went right up until the end. That's why I had to disconnect you. But you're back now. What else do you have to say? And please be truthful.
I don't understand why, if someone doesn't agree with you, that you want to shut them down.
No, that's not it, Ann. What's your comment? What's your actual comment? Because if you're calling to complain, I don't have time for that.
It is possible. This has nothing to do with Roe versus Wade. This may have everything to do with her truth and her experience.
Her truth.
And no one can say.
I can say it.
He could be
I
lying.
just said it.
She's
lying.
Very well be lying.
He could
be. What he should have done is apologize and say, I did some things in my youth that I am not proud of. And if I did something to you, Dr. Ford, I apologize.
Why would he apologize if he did something?
Done that?
All right. So we can't talk over each other. Is that the totality of your comment, that he should apologize for perhaps maybe if he did something? That's what you think a sitting judge on the D.C. Circuit is going to say to someone who's obviously got a few screws loose and is coming into this area to accuse him on behalf of drug makers for abortion pills and things like that? That's where you are right now.
Take the abortion pill, take Democrat, Republican off the table.
No, because those are factors.
Very intelligent woman.
Yeah,
this
she
is. Not some Stormy Daniel that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
This is an intelligent woman, educated, white female, so it doesn't matter. She could be telling the truth and he could be lying, which is a good possibility. So I think that we need to give her some benefit as a doubt. You're a woman. I'm a woman. What would you do?
Nothing. That means nothing to me,
She didn't ask for this to be made public.
She sent it to the newspaper. I can't, Ann, because I'm not a liar. I can't put myself in the shoes of a liar. And as a Christian, I would think that you would understand that there is no male or female or Jew or Greek in the kingdom. There's the truth and there's a lie. And if she had anything to corroborate her story, any salient details to kind of point to the fact that she was telling the truth, I would be much more ready to consider her allegation as something that needs to be investigated. But because she showed up to the hearing and couldn't even corroborate her own letter that she wrote to Dianne Feinstein and to her own senator, because she was unable to bring any kind of who drove her home that night? Why did she go up the narrow staircase? All these questions that she should have been able to answer that she avoided because she's not telling the truth. And you said take abortion out of it. What will you say at the judgment seat, Ann? Are you going to tell God, take abortion out of it? Do you think you're going to wag your finger at him? Do you think you're going to be able to tell God, hey, you know what, God? I'm a woman. And so I have to respect people's educations and I have to respect their choices. Abortion is out of it. Do you think that's going to fly there? Consider what your positions and consider them in the light of eternity. And for goodness sakes, stop seeing yourself as a woman or a Republican or someone who believes people who have educations, and get in your word. Try to understand things from that perspective, because that's the one that matters. And thank you so much for calling again. Let's go to Laura in Washington. Thank you for calling the show, and happy Friday to you.
Someone who believes people who have education. And
turn your radio down. Laura. I think we lost her. I'm going to tell you, there's nothing that gets my goat more than someone actually, you're a woman. Okay, I've also married and I've had 3 kids. So what? Why do our characteristics, things we didn't choose, because I wasn't actually able to say, I want to be a woman. I want to be a woman, God. Please make me a woman. That was not my choice. This is what God created. I'm working within those boundaries. This isn't about whether people are men or if they're women, or it's about the truth. And if you think for 1 second that this only happens to Judge Kavanaugh, it happens in a vacuum, it never happens to anyone else, then just look up the stories of exonerated and look at the college students who were wrongly accused of rape that have been exonerated. Look at the men who've spent decades in prison who were exonerated by DNA evidence, who were wrongly accused. Guess what they say when you say, hey, I want to take this case against this woman who wrongly accused me. They say, the statute of limitations has expired. You've been in jail too long to now bring charges against her for wrongly accusing you, even though we've exonerated you with DNA evidence. This is serious business. So while there are women out there who are reeling from listening to these accusations and memories have been brought up, true victims, they're the ones that I have solidarity with. They're the ones who I wish they would be able to get justice for what they've been through. True victims, not people who are political pawns like Blasey Ford. And that's the big difference here. I know the difference. There are people who have actually been assaulted, people who've been raped, kidnapped, you name it. They've had horrible things happen to them. Those are the ones who deserve justice. People who are just doing things because of politics, that's not a real thing. That's called being used, which is what's happening to Dr. Ford. And it's unfortunate that emotions play more of a role in whether or not she's telling the truth than the actual corroboration and evidence that she was able to bring, which was very scant. She doesn't have anyone who was at the party who remembers the actual party or will say that Judge Kavanaugh was there. And I am open to Judge Kavanaugh not telling the truth. I've been waiting all week for this hearing so I could hear, is he guilty? Is he guilty of this? I don't believe he is. And if I thought he was, I would be the first one to say he's not guilty. I would be, or he is guilty. I was open to either possibility. It didn't happen. She wasn't able to bring the actual, she needed to bring more than just an emotional 12-year-old voice and some feelings. She needed to bring more than a story that could have been ripped straight from the pages of Mark Judge's book. She needed to bring more than that. So I want to get to, we'll go back to the phones in just a second here, but I want to get to Graham's comments on the effect that this process will have on other potential nominees and how there are people out there who have aspirations to do great things in public life who are now rethinking that because they love their family more. It's number 4.
This is going to destroy the ability of good people to come forward. Your high school yearbook. You have interacted with professional women all your life, not one accusation. You're supposed to be Bill Cosby when you're a junior and senior in high school. And all of a sudden you got over it. It's been my understanding that if you drug women and rape them for 2 years in high school, you probably don't stop. Here's my understanding. If you lived a good life, people would recognize it, like the American Bar Association has the gold standard. His integrity is absolutely unquestioned. He is the very circumspect in his personal conduct, harbors no biases or prejudices. He's entirely ethical, is a really decent person. He is warm, friendly, unassuming. He's the nicest person.
Wow. This is the American Bar Association, just before they got their phone calls from the Democrats telling them that their endorsement was actually working against the Democrats' cause. And so then last night they said that it needs to be delayed. The entire process needs to be delayed for an FBI investigation, which would only bring in more people to be interviewed to say that Christine Blasey Ford, they don't remember it. They don't remember it happening. There are no extra people to be interviewed that corroborate her side of the story. There are only people who will further impeach the information that she originally brought. Now, if you think I've been exaggerating the connection between abortion and this Supreme Court nomination process and the reason the Democrats are fighting this as hard as they are for the swing vote seat, take it from Geraldo Rivera, hardly a conservative. He was on Fox News talking about abortion versus the pro-life movement. It's number 6.
Roe v. Wade balances the equities between the mother and the unborn child. At a certain point, the unborn child, not yet formed, has rights. Those rights can be balanced against the privacy rights of the woman. All you have to do to erode Roe v. Wade is say the child is viable earlier and earlier and earlier in the pregnancy. So now abortion is only legal when the child is not yet viable.
Well, that's
so viability will continue to shrink. It'll be at 6 months. It'll be at 5 months. It'll be at 4 months.
Conception.
It'll be at 3 months. And in some states, you're absolutely right, it will be at conception. This is a watershed moment. Half the country is absolutely stricken by what's happening. The other half is elated by what's happening. This defines the division in this country. Right, left, blue, red, conservative, liberal. This was huge.
And what is Dr. Blasey Ford getting in return for this destruction? And, you know, she's had to move out of her house, et cetera, et cetera. Well, there are 3 GoFundMe accounts currently in excess of $900,000. When they're done, when they run up to the last day, they'll be worth well over $1 million, possibly even more than that. Sounds like a payoff to me. And again, maybe she rejects the money. I doubt it, but maybe she rejects it and says, I won't take a penny of that because I didn't do this for money. But I doubt it, because the women who accused Donald Trump, they got their houses paid off. Do you see the connection here? It's time for the adults to have a chat. If you're in your feelings, that's something for a later point. This is about, if it was just about the truth, she would have insisted that her allegation come forward during the time when he was actually being questioned. She would have insisted, hey, it's going to come out anyway. The newspaper's going to find out about me anyway. Now the newspaper's calling me. I know they're calling me. Everything's still going on. I still have a chance to catch this. I still have a chance to tell my story to the entire Senate Judiciary panel, and I have a chance to have this man respond. I'm going to go for it. But she didn't do that because this is a delay tactic. Now, we have people in the call queue. We will call or come to your calls right after this. We actually don't have a guest next segment, so we'll do all calls. So stay right there. We'll be back with more Stacey on the Right.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Wildman, president of American Family Association and American Family Radio. You know, the very first day in Israel, when we're staying in Jerusalem, we go to the Mount of Olives. And it's there at the Mount of Olives we look out over the old city of Jerusalem. It's a spectacular sight. You've seen it in pictures before, but it's another thing to actually be there as we walk down from the Mount of Olives to the Garden of Gethsemane, and we pray there. It's going to be a wonderful time with brothers and sisters from around the country visiting the Holy Land, the land of Jesus. If you want information on this March 14th through the 22nd tour, just call us and we'll send you a brochure. Call 1-800-FAMILIES, F-A-M-I-L-I-E-S, option 5, and leave us your name and your address and we'll mail you a brochure. Or if you want to simply go online at twholyland.com, everything's there. twholyland.com.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
The suicide rate in America is increasing. That not only makes it an important public health issue, it also has become an election year issue. Antonio Delgado is a congressional candidate in New York. His tweet explained that suicide rate increased in nearly every state from 1999 to 2016, including an increase of 29% in New York. We must commit funding to help those suffering from mental health conditions and let them know that they are not alone. Illinois congressional candidate Sarah Daddy reported that suicide rates are up across gender and age in the U.S. Take a minute on World Suicide Prevention Day today and tell someone that they are important to you. It could save a life. First, let me assure you that the numbers I just cited are correct. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the suicide rate rose in all but one state, with increases across age, gender, and ethnicity. And it's also worth noting that in more than half of those suicides, in 27 states, the people had no known mental health conditions before they ended their lives. Second, suicide is being viewed not only as a mental health problem, but as a public health one as well. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death, and suicides account for more than twice as many deaths as homicides. Finally, there are many reasons for suicide. Mental health professionals, for example, point to the economic downturn 10 years ago. The dramatic rise in opioid addiction is another reason. And a third concern is suicide contagion. That is the idea that exposure to suicide may increase the chance of suicide for some. Suicide has become a major health issue. That's why we're hearing more about it on these political campaigns. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
From Universal 1440, Unbroken, Path to Redemption, the rest of World War II hero Louis Zamperini's true story, now playing, rated PG-13.
This is Stacy on the Right with Stacy Washington on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
And you've described this as being near the country club, wherever this house was. Is that right?
I would describe it as somewhere between my house and the country club, in that vicinity that's shown in your picture.
Okay.
And the country club is about a 20-minute drive from my parents' home.
A 20-minute drive, and of course I've marked as the crow flies.
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that somebody drove you somewhere, either to the party or home from the party?
Correct.
Okay. Has anyone come forward to say to you, hey, remember, I was the one that drove you home?
No.
Okay.
I mean, that's the simplest corroboration she could ever have. And you can't tell me in a heightened state of fear and anxiety, if she's just been sexually assaulted, she doesn't remember how she got home. She says she ran out of the house. She just tried to slip by really quickly, and she left out of the front door, and then she just somehow made it home 8 miles away. Come on now. Again, this is not about me being unwilling to, consider, hey, could Judge Kavanaugh have possibly done this? I was waiting on the evidence. I thought, this woman, I didn't think she'd appear. That was the title of one of the shows this week was, what's the over-under on her showing up? And then you get to the actual day, and she starts talking about caffeine. She wasn't even taking the process seriously. She didn't even get up early enough to drink anything, like a cup of coffee on the way over. She could have told one of the lawyers, when you come pick me up, bring me a cup of coffee. I need coffee on the way over. She's staying at a hotel. There are no hotels in D.C. that don't have coffee in the lobby for the guests, either paid or complimentary. I mean, who are we kidding here with that performance that she put on yesterday? So by all means, if you're the kind of person who thinks that your innate characteristics are going to somehow matter to whether or not you were obedient to the word of God and you read it and understood it and denied it anyway, if you think that the thing that's going to get you out of jail free is, well, I was a woman, I had to believe in abortion, you got a really, really rude thing coming up on you fast. It's coming up fast, and you still have a chance to change it, but it's still coming up on you. It's coming up on all of us. We all go to the same place initially. Initially, we all go straight to the judgment seat. It's after that you should be concerned about. Come on now. We'll go to Laura in Washington. Laura, thank you so much for calling the show today.
Yes. Hello?
Hey, how are you?
Hi, Stacy. Oh, it's great to talk to you. I just want to say that I'm grateful for your show, and people that are in the know, we have to stick together. I thought that caller, I won't say the name, but that provided a platform for how emotional they are. And when you give them the facts, when you actually hand them the facts of what the situation is and who these people are, they churn it into another bunch of emotional stew. Mm-hmm. And you can't get through to them. It's impossible. It's like shouting into the wind. So I'm really grateful. We have to all stick together. And I'm grateful that there's people out there that are awake and aware, and we do exist out there. There's probably more of us than we think.
I hope so, Laura, because it really makes me sad. It makes me sad when the response to the fact that no creditable proof was provided is, well, you're a woman, you have to understand. Actually, I don't. I don't wake up in the morning, I'm sure you don't either, Laura, and say, well, what am I going to do as a woman today? That's just not a part of how we think. It is an attribute, sure, but it's not something that we should be making our decisions based solely upon, especially when we have right and wrong to consider. Laura, thank you for the call and the comment. I appreciate that. Let's go to Lori in Virginia. Lori, thank you so much for calling the show today. Happy Friday.
Hey, Stacey. Thank you so much for taking my call. I love your show, and I'm very inspired by what you had to say. I'm just calling to respond to the one caller who was talking about Kavanaugh's accuser being a white, educated woman. And I myself am a white, educated woman. I've been sort of in a similar situation that she described. I kind of grew up in the same era, in the same part of the country, and I don't think she's got a whole lot of credibility. I was watching a lot of the questioning taking place yesterday, and I don't remember how many times I was yelling at TV because she wasn't answering yes or no questions. She was claiming that she didn't understand the question, and she's, really that highly educated. I don't know why she was confused about some of the, very simple questions that were being asked. I know she's highly educated, but I think a lot of it was just a complete act. And
it had to be. Thank you. So, Lori, it had to be. I'm not a white educated woman, but I certainly don't think that whether someone's white or educated has anything to do with them being able to ascertain the truth. And I think you're listening to her and you're finding it not credible. But I guess the question I would have for you is, so you have a good education. And she did too.
I'm not as highly educated as she is.
Well, sure, but
yeah,
you have advanced education.
And,
yes. Okay. So this is a valid question for me to ask you, which is, have you ever in your educational career, when you were getting your bachelor's degree or since then, encountered a person with as much education as she had that had that same presentation? I'm talking about the teenager voice, all that. I couldn't get it.
And when and I don't think I realized that she was a professor. Maybe I'd forgotten that detail with, all the information that's been coming out. But I cannot even imagine her teaching a class, especially at a college level. I mean,
she has graduate students that she teaches. That's what she said. She has graduate students who were approached about her being, a victim of Kavanaugh, and that's why she decided I can't keep having my students, getting approached. But I thought there were moments when the facade fell down. I don't know how much of it you saw, but there were some times when the prosecutor who was asking questions on behalf of the Republicans, when she was talking, there were times where Blasey Ford actually kind of cocked her head to the side and her face wasn't vacant. And I saw the professor in her come out where she wanted to say something, kind of direct and cutting. Did you catch that? I thought I saw the real her.
I agree with you completely. And she, I can't quite describe it. I didn't think of it maybe in that way, but yes, you're absolutely right. There were moments she wanted to say something. And, I did catch the moment where she was actually answering a question and her female attorney, Kat, turned off the microphone. So I saw that too, which I thought, there's a lot of little tiny things that are happening right now that I'm picking up on, and I hope everybody else is too, because it's just all the little tiny details about probably the last 7 weeks that's more interesting to me than what she had to say about 36 years ago about, how it all came together in the last 7 weeks. That's what's really
I found that too. I
perked.
wanted more of those quick because I was kind of like, well, wait a minute. So the attorneys you're sitting with were referred to you by Dianne Feinstein? That's something that we could explore. But we didn't get there. But that, I agree with you. I kind of didn't say to myself, well, I'm not an educated white woman, so I can't understand her perspective. I just was like, does she feel like she's telling the truth, And she didn't. She didn't feel like that to me. And then she didn't have any evidence. So I really, honestly, I couldn't have been more ready to have heard her and believed her yesterday, and she just couldn't sell it to me. Lori, thank you so much for calling the show. I appreciate your perspective today. Let's do one more call. Tony in Kansas. Tony, thank you for calling the show today. Hey there, you're on the air. Oh no. Well, when you call in, you have to, when you go into on hold status, you have to turn your radio down, because if you don't, you'll hear the delay, and then, and the delay is broadcasting from St. Louis syndicated out of Tupelo, American Family all over the country, Urban Family Talk all over the country. So in order for all those wires and things to work, there's a slight delay. So you'll hear that when you call. You have to turn your radio down, or however you're listening, your live stream app, whatever, you have to turn it down. Thank you so much for the great calls today. I want to quickly get through this. So I saw this story online today, and I was like, I got to talk about this on the show. And I know the Blasey Ford story is hot, but it's apparently going to be hot until next week. I just got an alert from the Republican National Committee that Mitch McConnell has postponed or scheduled a vote for next week on Friday on the entire nomination. So the actual Senate floor vote, where everyone will go on the record as to either supporting Kavanaugh or opposing him, it will happen next Friday. Here's the quote from Mitch McConnell's office. The supplemental FBI background investigation would be limited to current, credible allegations against the nominee and must be completed no later than 1 week from today. So we will have a guest on to discuss exactly what that means from the RNC. But right now I want to get to this Mark Zuckerberg Facebook page threat from this white hat hacker. Bloomberg is reporting that a Taiwanese white hat hacker who has 26,000 followers on Facebook named Chang Chai Wan has promised to delete the Facebook founder's account and broadcast himself doing so on Facebook Live. Chang and his Facebook page are listed as a special contributor in Line Corp's Bug Bounty Hall of Fame for 2016. He was once sued by a local bus operator for hacking into its system and buying a single ticket for a single Taiwanese dollar, which one Taiwanese dollar is worth 3 U.S. cents. The hacker also posted screenshots of Facebook's responses to his bug reports. Now, he uses hacking as a means to earn money, and he does that by using Facebook's ongoing bug bounty program, where Facebook claims to recognize and reward security researchers who report vulnerabilities in its service. If it's successful, this will not be the first time that Zuckerberg's page has been hacked. Back in 2011, a hacker managed to successfully post a status update from Zuckerberg's account. So they claim that at 3 a.m. in San Francisco, 6 a.m. in New York, 11 a.m. in London, or 12 p.m. in Berlin, this event is going to occur. I have no idea if it's actually going to happen, but it comes on the tail of new news today. And this is what I couldn't believe. That story is interesting, and if it happens, whoa, Facebook, you got to get your security apparatus together. But the story that I thought was actually pretty horrific was that there's another breach on Facebook. Now, this is the same place that sold all of the user data, collated all of your information from those little surveys and little games that everybody played, looked into all your friends' accounts. I mean, they read all your private messages, and now they've had another security breach. They allowed hackers to control the accounts of up to 50 million users. Following the disclosure, shares of Facebook extended midday losses and ended trading about 2.5% down. Zuckerberg says they're working to investigate the breach. Now, here's what's so annoying about this. If he spent less time smacking conservatives down and dedicated more manpower and resources to securing his empire, which is Facebook, he wouldn't constantly be in the news for this. I think it's really... So here's how it worked. There's something called View As. You notice it on your page. View As lets users see what their profile looks like to other users on the platform. This vulnerability, which consisted of 3 separate bugs, allowed the hackers to get access tokens, which are digital keys which let people stay logged into the device without having to re-enter their password. And those digital keys, tokens, access tokens, were then used to control other people's accounts. Almost 50 million accounts had their access tokens taken. Facebook has reset those tokens. The company also reset tokens for an additional 40 million accounts who used the View As feature in the last year as a precautionary measure for a total of 90 million accounts, or about 4% of the total users, given that they have 2.23 billion active monthly users as of June 30th. The reset requires those users to re-enter their password when they return to Facebook or access an app that uses Facebook login. And you get a notification at the top of your newsfeed detailing what happened. I'd love to speak to anyone who's in the audience who has actually noticed that they've been required to log back in, because that means you're in the 50 million. And additionally, the company suspended the View As feature while it reviewed their security. They say they fixed the issue on Thursday night and notified law enforcement, including the FBI and Irish Data Protection Commission, in order to address any general data protection regulation rules, the GDPR, from overseas. They say they've just begun their investigation, and they haven't uncovered any information abuse as of yet. Really interesting. Really interesting that this is going on again. Don't you think? Like, you just look at it and you're like, wow, I don't know. What exactly does it take for them to secure this app? All right, we have less than a minute left. So what we'll do is we'll take some phone calls in the last segment right after these important messages. I want to encourage you to plan on having some screen-free time this weekend. I know that probably sounds weird because I also say on the program, I say subscribe and go to my website and all that stuff. But I'm a firm believer in unplugging sometimes. I think it really, it's something that we used to do so regularly. We would go outside, we would spend time sitting outside, and it doesn't have to be a special fancy place that you're sitting. It can be anywhere, really. You could be sitting in your back deck or your front porch or your side yard, whatever. But getting outside, I've been doing it more and more often, especially since we know it's going to get cold. And I tell you what, you get outside, you don't think about all this stuff. And then you just get to commune with nature, and maybe some bugs will hit you in the arm. The other day we were walking and a huge bug hit me in the arm, and I was so grossed out. And then I remembered, I'm outside. This stuff happens outside. And so I had to be grateful for the grossed out feeling that I had for about 5 minutes. But yeah, get out there. That's what I'm encouraging you to do. So we have one more segment left. We'll do calls and more on Stacy on the Right when we return. Stay there. This is Just a Minute with Stacy Washington. People are moving as fast as their U-Hauls will carry them out of high-tax, high-regulation states like California, New York, and Illinois. Where are they headed? Into low or no personal property tax states like Tennessee, Texas, and Florida. So there is definitive proof that lower taxes are attractive to families juggling expenses. Why then do we see low-tax, no-tax states transform into high-tax, heavy regulation states over time? Because the high-tax residents flee the consequences of their voting patterns. When they arrive in the prosperous low-tax states, they begin to vote in the very same high taxes and heavy regulations that drove them from their previous location. Isn't that silly? I liken the behavior to economic locusts. After eating everything in sight, locusts move on to greener pastures. Economic locusts leave fiscal destruction in their wake. Remember this when you suddenly see calls for new taxes. If voters say yes, fiscal ruin will follow. I'm Stacy Washington. Find out more at stacyontheright.com.
Netflix continues to ignore the outcry about 13 Reasons Why. The American Family Association, along with Parents Television Council and several other pro-family groups, have reached out to the streaming service urging the cancellation of their program. Netflix has not even responded to our letter. Instead, they released an even more vile Season 2 and are producing Season 3. Netflix CEO Reed Hastings says their program is engaging and that it fosters discussion of taboo topics like suicide and sexual assault. But at what cost? 14-year-old Anna Bright and several other teens have committed suicide after watching the show. Hastings calls our objections propaganda. Does he feel the profitability of his company is worth more than the lives damaged or lost because of his show? Please sign our petition to Netflix, learn more, and share our action alert when you visit afa.net. And pray Reed Hastings will recognize the dangers of 13 Reasons Why.
Rights. I'm Eben Brown. There seems to be much confusion in Maryland in the aftermath of a workplace shooting in which once again the shooter's mental health was of issue, but not used in a process to deny the purchase of the firearm used in the attack. The 26-year-old woman killed 4 and wounded 3 others at a warehouse in Aberdeen, Maryland, and it was later learned the gunwoman was previously diagnosed schizophrenic, yet checked no for mental illness on paperwork when buying the gun. The law in Maryland is supposed to prevent anyone involuntarily committed for a month or longer from buying guns. She had not been. Next week, Vermont will officially outlaw bump stocks. The state will be the 9th to do so, but the bump stock ban in Vermont is a bit different. They're not offering cash payouts to people who surrender the devices to law enforcement. The ban is being challenged, however, in Vermont State Court. And those are your bullet points. I'm Eben Brown, Fox News.
You can watch a live stream of the show on Facebook or YouTube at Stacy on the Right. Now, back to the show on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
The one thing I can tell you, you should be proud of. Ashley, you should be proud of this. That you raised a daughter who had the good character to pray for Dr. Ford. To my Republican colleagues, if you vote no, you're legitimizing the most despicable thing I have seen in my time in politics. You want this seat? I hope you never get it. I hope you're on the Supreme Court. That's exactly where you should be. And I hope that the American people will see through this charade. And I wish you well, and I intend to vote for you, and I hope everybody who's fair-minded will.
Those words. I wish they would ring out and continue to ring in the ears of those who heard them. But just one meeting with the Democrats, I tell you what, it was a couple of segments ago over the break, there was, don't meet with deceivers by yourself. You can't withstand the onslaught. Jeff Flake should have never taken a meeting with a room full of Democrats. It's a corrupting influence. It's just too bad. All right, let's go back to the phones. This is the last segment of the show on a Friday. I'm excited about the weekend. I hope you are too. Hope you're planning to have fantastic time with family and friends and unplug. And if you're working over the weekend, I hope you're going to have fantastic time working and enjoying the fruits of your labor, because work is a blessing. And then I hope if you aren't working that you'll take some time on Saturday evening or Sunday morning to get in the pew and refresh and get that fresh word in your local house of worship. So let's go to the phones. Tony in Kansas, thank you for calling into the show today. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Stacy.
Hey there.
Hey, I think I understand something about this case. I think she's telling the truth. And I think Brett Kavanaugh is too. So the reason why this is possible is because there was a misunderstanding between the two. If you notice in her explanation, she says she'll never forget the laughter that she heard, the gregarious laughter. Well, if you were a young 17-year-old and you're poking at it and tickling at a 15-year-old, there would be laughter, and he may very well have been there having fun and horseplaying. And I think that if horseplay for a 17-year-old happens maybe 3 times a day, it would be impossible to remember this event unless it was a traumatic event. And for Brett Kavanaugh, it would not have been traumatic. It would have been fun. But for her, it was a life-changing experience. That's what I'm thinking is going on here.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess anything's possible. Thanks so much for calling the show, Tony. I don't know. I don't really buy that about it. I remember a lot of things from high school, but there's a lot that I don't remember. But there's a unique quality about me not remembering things. Like if I'm around someone who was present at that event, this has happened many times. I've been around someone that I knew from way back then, or I'll be talking to my sister on the phone and she'll say, do you remember this person? And I always say no immediately. And then she'll describe them to them, or she'll say, do you remember when we went to X, or when we lived in so-and-so and we went to this place? And then I'll say, yeah. And as we begin to talk, I'll remember that person. And then she'll say, do you remember when with that person we went to X, or we were at this football game in high school. And after thinking about it for a little while, I can remember, but there's always something about it that stuck out to me, which is how I know it's a genuine memory. I'll say, didn't she yada, 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 or wasn't she the one, or didn't that day this happen? And when the person I'm talking to says, yes, exactly, that did happen that day, then you have corroboration. Then you have that, you're remembering the same time frame, the same event, et cetera, et cetera. She has no one to corroborate. No one who sits there and says, even after a few minutes of kind of talking it through, you know what? There was a party where you and I were both there, and Brett Kavanaugh and Mark Judge were both there. It's the absence of that removes this idea that something happened to her and he was the one who did it. Something may have very well happened to her, but he remembers very specifically and has calendars to prove his whereabouts, which means he's much more credible. It's weird that he decided to start keeping the calendars 2 years before that, but he did. So as weird as it might be, it's the course of events as they occurred. There's no way he's getting calendars from way back then and faking that in the 1 week between the time the allegations came out and the time he appeared. There's just no way. So let's do one more phone call. We got David in Indiana. Thank you so much for calling the show.
Hello.
Hi.
Stacey.
Hi. Thanks for calling.
Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Yes. Blazer Ford, her statements was just, I didn't see any genuineness in it. I think she did a good acting job. But the big disappointment is Senator Flake and what he's done. I mean, to extend his hand to the Democrats and play along with it. I mean, this has been drug out long enough, and that's all the Democrats' plan was all along.
I agree with
try
you.
To drag it out, to try to get past where he couldn't get in November and then have to wait till 2020.
And not only that, but if he's not seated, so the vote was timed for tomorrow so that he could be seated and hear cases next week. They're hearing cases next week. They're actually putting some of the cases off, because they don't have a tie means no ruling. It just gets remanded back. They need him on the court to fill out the bench so that they don't have ties. And also, why would he not be there to hear these cases? These cases are the calendar is set and he should be there. I think the Supreme Court should unanimously vote to just push their calendar back a week to wait for the conclusion of this. Oh, the Democrats would be so mad if they did that. Don't you think?
I tell you what. Senator Lindsey Graham came through like a firecracker, though.
He did, yes. He redeemed himself with me because he had been on my bad list for, just over 10 years. The entire time I've been paying attention to politics like this, he's been on my bad list for being a total rhino. But his friends betrayed him, and I'm not happy that he was so hurt by it because some of that anger was hurt. But I am glad that he finally sees the light about who these people are. They were never his friends. They were just using him to get votes that they needed to get done. And he thought he was reaching across the aisle and he was really getting used. Let's go to Rebecca in Mississippi. Rebecca, thanks for calling the show today. Happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday to you.
Thank you. What's your comment?
My comment is, I was wondering what you thought about the fact that Democratic Representative Sheila Jackson Lee slipped an envelope to Dr. Ford's attorneys after the testimony was over with.
Okay, so you
it's
saw
all over
that
the
too.
Internet about that.
I saw it too. I saw it yesterday as it was happening. And then someone posted a tiny clip of it, and another Diamond and Silk made it into a GIF, so it repeats over and over and over again, and they shared that. I tell you what, Rebecca, that sure did. You know what was really so suspect about it was the look on Sheila Jackson Lee's face when she handed it to him. First she said hi, and he looked at her. I don't think he really recognized who she was. And then she moved her scarf out of the way and took the envelope from her left hand to her right hand and handed it to him. And the look of realization came over his face. And then he said, "Thank you." And she nodded her head very resolutely, like, exactly. And then she turned and just looked straight ahead. And he put the envelope in his pocket, inner jacket pocket, and patted it. And I said it was a payoff. She probably just paid for the polygraph that everybody was wondering, who's paying for this? Sheila Jackson Lee, apparently. I have no idea what was paid for, but it certainly was odd that she gave it to him right after the testimony concluded. Don't you think?
I do think that. It's exactly what I put on Facebook, payoff.
Mm-hmm.
And I also just found out or read that Dr. Ford has 3 GoFundMe accounts equaling a total of $900,000.
Mm-hmm. And they'll be higher than that by the time the weekend's over. Absolutely. I think one thing we have to do is we have to be very, very, very vigilant about, not wavering on this. We can't waver. And for people who are wondering, you can go to thestream.org and get the information on the Blasey Ford connection with the abortion profiteering. You can get that there. Rebecca, thank you for calling the show, and happy weekend to you. I hope you have a great weekend. Yeah, you know what? Don't start anything over here. So this morning, there were a lot of interviews that Lindsey Graham did all over television and everything about his fiery comments yesterday at the Kavanaugh hearing at close to the close. And he went on TV this morning and they were asking, what are you doing? And he actually, I think this is him in the hearing room saying he's not going to shut up. He's actually in there right before they took the vote this morning, moving the nomination out of the committee hearing phase. So here's Lindsey Graham at number 7.
If you're a gang rapist when you're a sophomore and a junior in high school, you don't let it go. Every woman who actually knows Brett Kavanaugh has come forward to say he is not that kind of guy. He has been at the highest level of public service, under tremendous scrutiny, 6 FBI investigations, and we missed the sophomore, junior gang rapist. We didn't miss it. It's much garbage. We're in the twilight zone, and here's what I would say. Miss Ford, all I can say about Miss Ford, I feel sorry for her, and I do believe something happened to her, and I don't know when and where, but I don't believe it was Brett Kavanaugh. And as a prosecutor, you couldn't get out of the batter's box, because in America, before you can accuse somebody of a crime, you have to tell them when it happened and where it happened, and you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt it did happen. The reason this case will never be brought in Maryland or anywhere else, you just can't get there. If you wanted to get a warrant, which is a probable cause standard, to search or arrest somebody, you got to prove by probable cause where it happened and when it happened. How are you supposed to defend yourself? Is the burden really on you to prove that you were not at a party 35 years ago and they won't tell you where it was and when it was?
And he makes a good point there. And that was preceding his vote to move Judge Kavanaugh out of the judiciary panel and into actual consideration. It is what it is. Now that the Republicans have agreed to continue to play this game with the Democrats, we'll see how they actually, crack this thing out. If what happens, if they bring forward more credible accusers and all that stuff. I previewed in the beginning of the show about how we're going to talk about George Soros funded Fusion GPS, and his spokesman actually confirmed. Now remember, Fusion GPS were the ones that actually created the relationship with that former MI6 agent to get him to create this dossier, the dossier that was then used as opposition research by the Clinton campaign, that was then used for the justification. It was doctored up and prettied up and used as a justification for the FISA warrants that tapped Trump Tower, et cetera, et cetera. So this is like the dirty deed itself. And who was funding it? George Soros. A spokesman for left-wing billionaire financier George Soros has acknowledging that he indirectly funded Fusion GPS, the firm behind the Steele dossier. Sources have told the Daily Caller News Foundation in the past that Soros helped fund Fusion's post-election work on Russian interference in the election process. Soros spokesman told the Washington Post that Soros donated to the Democracy Integrity Project, a group founded by former staffer to Dianne Feinstein. You see how it all connects up? So that's why I don't want to hear anybody telling me that Dr. Blasey Ford doesn't have any connections to these people. she got in with them awfully quick and got an attorney that they approved for her awfully quick. She said she couldn't figure out who to hire, and so Senator Feinstein made a recommendation. Notice she didn't ask Chairman Grassley for a recommendation, right? So Michael Vachon, the Soros aide, told Washington Post columnist David Ignatius that Soros provided a grant to a nonprofit group called the Democracy Integrity Project. Now, this organization, which was formed in 2017 by Daniel Jones, a former Senate Intelligence Committee staffer for Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein of California, paid Fusion GPS as a contractor to continue an investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. You can't make it up. Jones told the FBI in interviews in March of 2017 that his organization was paid around $50 million by a group of billionaires to conduct the investigation. Jones's statements to the FBI were first revealed in a report released by Republican members of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence back in April. So, if something stinks, you know, it's not just you. It's not, you're not imagining it. And pardon me if I just can no longer have the patience to put up with these emotional type conversations. I just don't have the patience for it anymore. God bless you. Have a fantastic weekend. Be back with you next week.